I think the story of Prince Philip is a completely extraordinary story, and it's very little known. People have been watching Prince Philip, most people, for most of their lives, but they've seen him as a man who always turned up.
For decades, Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth were unwaveringly in love. Nonetheless, Prince Philip made an unexpected decision after 70 years of marriage. He no longer wished to live with the Queen. The public was perplexed by this unexpected action and wondered what had gone wrong. Was this decision personal, or was there more to the story? For years, the truth was kept secret. Surprisingly, Princess Anne, King Charles, and Prince Andrew have now revealed the exact cause of their father's departure. Watch this space as we discover the truth about Prince Philip's refusal to live with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Princess Anne has described why Prince Philip lives separately from the Queen. Princess Anne, the only daughter of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, has startled many with her disclosure. Years of speculation have surrounded the reasons Prince Philip chose to leave Buckingham Palace and live separately from the Queen in his latter years. But at last, the truth is revealed. Princess Anne, often referred to as her father's favorite, has disclosed the true reason for her father's choice. Her brothers, Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, have supported her claims. Stay tuned to learn the full story. Princess Anne and her father, Prince Philip, had a close bond that differed from the formal and distant relationships found in many royal families. She was known as her father's girl, most likely because they shared characteristics such as being opinionated, abrasive, headstrong, strong-willed, caustic, and having a sharp sense of humor, often at the cost of others. They both enjoyed enduring idiots and had little patience for anyone who did not comprehend as quickly as they did. Still, their unwavering commitment surprised me. Prince Philip and Princess Anne could see nothing wrong with them other. Rather, they gently corrected each other while still exhibiting great respect. Princess Anne witnessed what was going on between her parents over the years. Her brothers were typically too busy executing their royal duties. Anne witnessed firsthand what lied beneath her parents' beautiful smiles and regal relationship, and she knew the truth. However, this is not all. Prince Philip also confided in his daughter about the hardships he faced during his marriage to Queen Elizabeth. But if we want to truly understand why Prince Philip opted to move abroad, we must go back to the beginning, before Princess Anne and her brothers were born. Queen Elizabeth, now Princess Elizabeth, initially met exiled Greek Prince Philip during a wedding in 1934. She was just 8 years old and he was 13, but when they met again 5 years later, there was no spark between them. At the time, Prince Philip was 18 and Princess Elizabeth was 13 years old. Still, the princess was not alone. Her sister and dad were visiting Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, Devon. Philip was one of the cadets that they were meant to meet with. However, a mumps and chickenpox outbreak during the visit disrupted plans. Prince Philip came to entertain the young princesses, who spent time in the headmaster's house rather than attending a chapel service as planned. He was one of those who had not been infected with the virus. Philip, tired of sitting inside the house, finally invited the princesses outside. Instead, he adopted a carefree athletic attitude, jumping over tennis nets and playing croquet. Princess Elizabeth saw this and fell in love immediately. She later admitted that after that day, she never had eyes for anyone else. Following this meeting, the princess began sending letters to Philip as he served in the Royal Navy during the war, and she developed a strong teenage fixation with him. Elizabeth even kept a photo of him in her bedroom as a token of respect. Philip returned from the Pacific Theater in 1946, and his bond with Princess Elizabeth intensified. On the grounds of Balmoral, he proposed to her in June. In a 1946 letter, he wrote, "To have been spared in the war and seen victory, to have been given the opportunity to rest and readjust myself, to have fallen in love completely and unreservedly, makes all one's personal and even world's problems seem small and petty." Despite the suggestion, Queen Elizabeth's father, King George VI, opposed their marriage. Elizabeth was too young, and he believed she was choosing the first male she met. Perhaps she would meet someone else and reconsider Philip. This prompted the royal family to remain discreet about Philip's plans to marry Elizabeth. Philip's proposal also encountered considerable criticism among the royal family. Although Philip is directly descended from Queen Victoria and has royal genealogy, many people thought he was too abrupt, unpolished, German, Greek, and un-English to marry Princess Elizabeth. But Elizabeth persisted. She had made up her mind about Philip and was ready to marry him. Not until Elizabeth's 21st birthday in July 1947, 1 year later, was their engagement officially announced. Philip had to relinquish his Danish and Greek royal titles and join the Church of England before marrying Elizabeth. Philip acted without hesitation because he loved Elizabeth. Philip was christened in the Greek Orthodox Church, but on October 3, 1947, the Archbishop of Canterbury formally welcomed him into the Church of England. Mountbatten is his new anglicized surname as well. Princess Elizabeth married Philip in Westminster Abbey in London on November 20, 1947. They thereafter proceeded to the Broadlands in Hampshire, England, the birthplace of Philip's uncle Earl Mountbatten, for their honeymoon. Philip had no idea, however, that his life was about to change in ways he never imagined conceivable. Prince Philip continued to serve in the Navy following the wedding, quickly ascending through the ranks. Their first son, Charles, arrived a year later, followed by their daughter, Anne. Philip's naval career took off, and he was eventually deployed to Malta. While the children remained in England, Princess Elizabeth traveled to be with him. For a short time, they lived quite typical lives. However, everything in their existence was about to change. King George became ill and ultimately away in 1952. They married just 5 years ago. Elizabeth and Philip's reality reversed itself. Elizabeth was just 25 years old when she became queen, and 30-year-old Philip had to adjust to a different reality. They had anticipated that after Elizabeth attained the throne, they would have more time to enjoy their own lives. However, fate had different plans. Elizabeth was about to become queen, and her husband Philip was pondering what he should be. Not a king, but someone who lives in the shadow of his Queen Elizabeth. Although they were aware of this from the start, it would have a significant impact on their entire relationship. Elizabeth's succession required him to renounce whatever ambitions he might have had within the Royal Navy. Being transferred to a supporting role unexpectedly would not have been easy for a man used to commanding ships. Not to add that this was the 1950s, when a husband's outranking and power over his wife was uncommon. This was especially tough for Philip because his wife was the top citizen, and family placed second in priority. Duty came first. For Philip, this marked the beginning of a lifelong conflict that would eventually define his decision to live away from the Queen in her dying years. But how did this come about? Wait around to learn. Elizabeth and Philip were on a safari excursion in Kenya when Philip informed her about her father's death, the challenges of royal life. Elizabeth returned to the UK knowing exactly what was expected of her. Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth II upon her arrival. Although Philip's title remained the same, he was not the king consort. Rather, he was designated as royal consort. Nonetheless, Prince Philip gave up his Royal Navy career to serve the realm and provided his wife unwavering support. However, this was simply the beginning of several modifications. They then moved from Clarence House to Buckingham Palace. On June 2, 1953, a year after ascending the throne, Queen Elizabeth was crowned in Westminster Abbey in London. The Canterbury Archbishop Philip was the first to kneel in front of the new king, promising to be her lifelong liegeman. Was he really capable of being this? Living under a woman's control was easier said than done for a man who had left behind goals and aspirations to support Queen Elizabeth II. Philip also had to adjust to walking a few steps behind his wife in public rather than next to her. Later, he stated that he expected to have a long career in the Navy, but he had to compromise because it quickly became evident that there was no hope. Philip attempted to make the best of his altered circumstances. However, after Elizabeth became queen, disagreements arose between her and Philip. One of the most significant confrontations happened when Philip's uncle, Louis Ducky Mountbatten, declared that the House of Mountbatten now governed England. Since Queen Elizabeth was married, her royal children would inherit her husband's surname. However, Elizabeth's grandmother, Queen Mary, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill objected to this. They demanded that Queen Elizabeth and her descendants would carry on the House of Windsor in order to honor her father's legacy. This decision enraged Philip, who considered himself nothing more than a bleeding amoeba, and the sole man in the country denied the right to carry his name down to his children. His statements reflected his frustration and difficulty in defining his identity inside the monarchy, as well as the challenges ahead. Queen Elizabeth defied long-standing convention when she decided to make certain modifications after hearing her husband's statements. In February 1960, she stated that her offspring will have the surname Mountbatten-Windsor, a mixture of hers and Prince Philip's. Elizabeth was the monarchy's head. Prince Philip acted as royal consort, but his specific responsibilities were unclear. He once informed Geix Brandreth that he was sometimes perceived as a refugee husband. He struggled to find a prominent role for himself inside an institution centered around his wife, even though he attempted to make the best of his situation and remained in the background. Prince Philip described his experience as royal consort as one of trial and error. Despite the fact that he was not the first royal consort in history, he faced challenges because there was no clear precedence to follow. When Prince Philip questioned what was expected of him as royal consort, he was met with blank stares and no response. Philip, on the other hand, was well aware of his primary obligation, to serve his wife, Queen Elizabeth, to the best of his ability. Despite his hard work, Prince Philip lacked the lively, determined, and outspoken personality of his daughter, Princess Anne. In his early years, Prince Philip focused on modernizing the monarchy, fearing that it might become a museum artifact. He did, however, have difficulties because the old guard resisted him in an attempt to protect customs. Philip, on the other hand, did not lose sight of his principles, which resulted in considerable success. He declared it unacceptable to treat the ceremony as if it were a theatrical production and proposed live television coverage of Elizabeth II's coronations. More than 20 million people turned in to see the program, demonstrating his insight. The monarchy had never been so available to the populace. After about 10 years, Philip became the first member of the royal family to sit for a televised interview. They let cameras inside their homes, giving them the opportunity to create a behind-the-scenes documentary. That is not all, however. Philip advised Elizabeth to abandon the ancient practice of presenting debutantes at court and instead use garden parties and informal meals to appeal to a broader portion of the British public. In order to reduce the rigidity of the royal family and the monarchy, he reorganized and renovated the royal estates. With fewer official responsibilities and more spare time, Prince Philip pursued his interests, and by the 1980s had written 9 novels. In addition to teaching Elizabeth how to use a teleprompter and urging her to broadcast her annual Christmas messages, he was the first royal member to use a computer, even authoring emails and speeches. Prince Philip was a very inquisitive man, and Queen Elizabeth made every effort to incorporate him in her public speeches. She was more than just a figurehead. The crown presented obstacles, but they worked through them together. Elizabeth let him take the lead in family affairs, but he had little influence in governmental concerns. On occasion, he treated her like any other wife, even in public. For example, Prince Philip's excessive speed while driving Elizabeth to Cowdray Park made the Queen anxious and caused her to take in breath at critical moments. Prince Philip finally blew out, threatening to yank her out of the car if she continued to act inappropriately. Despite her status as queen, she kept her cool and did not object. However, she did occasionally impose her authority in front of her subordinates. She occasionally yelled at him to calm down, which generally caused him to leave the room frustrated. Their relationship had its ups and downs, just like any other. Still, one item was always linked to Prince Philip: dishonesty. Because of his naturally flirty demeanor, he became the target of rumors regarding his adultery. Rumors about probable ties arose as a result of his participation in events such as his Gentlemen's Lunch Club and 1950 Royal Yacht Britannia cruises. He developed relationships with numerous women throughout time, including a writer, an English stage performer, and a Russian ballet dancer. None of these alleged links, however, were ever substantiated. The Baltimore Sun once published an article suggesting Philip was courting an anonymous woman whom he frequently visited in the West End flat. The palace dismissed the story, dismissing the idea of a chasm separating him from the Queen.
In my own life, I have always tried to reach across the boundaries of faith and community, to extend a helping hand wherever one might be needed.
Prince Philip responded cynically to the conjecture, asking if anyone had ever seen him walk any place without a police escort, hinting that such occurrences were impossible. However, royal biographer Sarah Bradford had a different perspective. According to her biography of Elizabeth, Philip had become more introverted since the alleged romance in the middle of the 1950s, flirting in elite circles that were big enough to hide him from the tabloids and paparazzi. Despite all of the talk and speculation, no one's adultery was ever confirmed. Rather, Philip's commitment to Queen Elizabeth has been unwavering. During their 50th wedding anniversary, Queen Elizabeth stated that he has been her strength and support throughout the years. They owed someone more than they knew or could ever claim. Elizabeth is continuously grateful to Prince Philip for his unwavering support and love as they marked their diamond and platinum anniversaries. But in 2017, something happened that fundamentally altered their relationship. After more than 70 years of marriage, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip chose to live apart. How might this decision have come about? Continue to observe and learn. Separated in May 2017, Prince Philip announced his retirement from public life with Queen Elizabeth. However, he did not retire until August 2, 2017, following his final royal engagement with the Royal Marines at the age of 96. Although the Duke of Edinburgh may opt to attend select engagements alongside the Queen, Buckingham Palace issued a statement declaring that he will no longer participate publicly. However, Prince Philip was concerned with something else, so this was unlikely. Following his retirement, he moved from Buckingham Palace to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, the former home of Prince John, the epileptic youngest son of George V and Queen Mary, who lived in calm seclusion with his loving nurse, Lala Bill, until his death at the age of 13 in 1919. Still, why did Prince Philip choose to call this area home? Prince Philip, then 90, stated in an interview in 2011 that he wanted to have fun. Though he did not retire until he was 96, the Queen, who understood how helpful Philip had been, wholeheartedly supported his decision because he needed time to himself. Though Philip had planned a quick visit, he was shocked to discover a busload of cooks, telephones, and other staff waiting for Jim when he arrived at Sandringham. Nonetheless, Prince Philip ensured that his stay was delightful. He relished the opportunity to drive a carriage in Sandringham's exclusive grounds. He acquired this new activity since arthritis in his wrists stopped him from playing polo. Though he eventually had to stop because he could not control the horses, carriage driving became a form of pleasure. He also enjoyed reading, painting watercolors, and talking with friends, with a preference for history over fiction. Philip enjoyed driving as well, but he was forced to quit in January 2019 after getting into a collision on a key road near the Sandringham.
My father, I suppose the last 70 years, has given the most remarkable, devoted service.
The other car's driver and passenger were harmed, but he was not. Philip apologized. 3 weeks later, he turned in his driver's license on demand. Nonetheless, he was permitted to drive on private estates and was spotted behind Windsor Castle in April 2019. However, what was supposed to be a quick journey to Wood Farm ended up being much longer. Philip departed the palace without returning. This was because, despite his retirement, he understood he still wanted to be active in royal affairs. Rather, he loved the calm life at Wood Farm Cottage. Nonetheless, this arrangement required him and the Queen to remain apart for extended periods of time. They did, however, speak on the phone every day, exchanging their day's events, and the Queen and other members paid Wood Farm visits to spend time together. Despite his withdrawal from public life, Prince Philip attended key events such as Prince Harry, Princess Eugenie, Lady Gabriella Windsor, and Princess Beatrice's royal wedding in 2018. But over time, he began to lose his long-standing friends, one of the disadvantages of living a long life. Philip lost 3 pals in a year, and more individuals he knew died, including his valet of 40 years. Although his short-term memory began to weaken as he approached 100 years old, Prince Philip remained astonishingly healthy and agile for his age. Philip was not excited about his upcoming birthday, but everyone else was. He despised the hubbub and spotlight. Philip also wandered around. He was usually at Windsor for Easter Court and Broadlands on weekends with Queen Elizabeth. In his older years, he appreciated Balmoral less, skipping trips in 2019 and 2020 and returning to Wood Farm. In 2020, the Queen followed him to Sandringham, reversing roles from when Prince Charles visited her. Usually, however, their visit was brief since the Queen had to return to handle state business. But then something unexpected happened, and Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth found themselves living together. Lockdown was declared in March 2020 amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Entering what was jokingly known as HMS Bubble, Prince Philip joined Queen Elizabeth at Windsor. Using Zoom, they kept in touch with family. On July 22nd, Philip made a memorable final public appearance, walking into the quadrangle in Windsor Castle to hand over his post as Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles to the Duchess of Cornwall. He was last seen before the camera here. In January 2021, a household doctor at Windsor Castle inoculated Philip and Elizabeth against COVID-19. But feeling ill, he was sent to King Edward VII Hospital as a precaution in February 2022. Despite the fact that he entered unaided, the public was concerned about his well-being. Buckingham Palace said that he was being treated for an infection and then had a successful heart surgery before being released. When Philip returned home, conversations about his approaching 100th birthday grabbed center stage, but he was not looking forward to 100. Maybe because he understood he would not make it there. Prince Philip died 3 weeks later, early on April 9, 2021, at the age of 99, with Queen Elizabeth by his side. The Queen later recognized that he had left a significant hole in her life. The palace portrayed his death as calm. Prince Philip was buried on April 17, 2021, at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, temporarily interred alongside 25 other coffins, including George III's. His last will was not read, but it was to be sealed for at least 90 years to preserve the Queen's dignity, and there are rumors that it may contain material damaging to the royal family's reputation. When asked about Prince Philip's legacy, Princess Anne described him as her critic, teacher, and supporter. She stated that she adored him and desired to live a life of free will and selfless devotion, just as he did. Throughout his life, his ability to regard each person as an individual with unique skills was distinguishing. She also appreciated the important role he played in Queen Elizabeth's rise to the throne at such a young age. Her confident rule stemmed from his unwavering backing. Prince Charles also commemorated his father. He stated that his father had committed the last 70 years to the Queen, the royal family, the nation, and the entire Commonwealth with great dedication. He was in awe of his father's unwavering dedication and vitality in caring for his mother throughout her life. Recalling family events, Prince Andrew described Prince Philip as a parent who appreciated spending time with his children. About a year after Prince Philip's death, Queen Elizabeth recalled her late husband, saying, "I have previously spoken of my great and abiding affection for this magnificent country and of the many good memories Prince Philip and I have always held here. As we have recently seen, there are few locations where this is truer than Scotland. It is often said that the people define a place." Her comments captured the close relationship she and Philip had with Scotland, as well as her great missing of him. Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth spent their final years apart, but he led an amazing life, and his consistent support of his wife was remarkable. On September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died at the age of 96, 1 year after her husband's death, and was buried next to him at the King George VI Memorial Chapel. They remained close even in death. What are your thoughts on Prince Philip's decision to live away from Queen Elizabeth in his final years? Do you believe he had a secret objective beyond what has been revealed? Let us know in the comments. Keep in mind that liking, sharing, and subscribing will provide you with additional access. You will also enjoy the video that appears on your screen.